Kicking off at number 5, the Helicoprion. And please forget about the Megalodon when it comes to some of the most bizarre and impossibly terrifying creatures that would have roamed the 7 seas of the ancient world, because the Helicoprion is a literal buzzsaw of a shark. And when I say literal buzzsaw, I mean it. Have you ever heard of a tooth whirl? Well, no, because seemingly it was an evolutionary offshoot that didn't exactly catch on back in the day when life was figuring out a way. But at some point in time, this aquatic creature figured it could get by growing a circular saw out of its mouth. Back in 2011, a strange tooth whirl was discovered on the skull of a Helicoprion in the Phosphoria site of Idaho that measured a staggering 18 inches in length. Now, it gave an explanation to an evolutionary curiosity that had existed since the late 1890s of a species of ancient shark that seemingly grew teeth in an incredibly bizarre pattern, attached to their lower jaw by a mass of cartilage. What's even more terrifying is that the Helicoprion is believed to have created this teeth whirl in the pattern of a growth ring, as this shark aged, its new teeth would push the previous set back in an infinite whirl, and essentially the older the shark, the bigger the buzzsaw. The jaw would close, rotating the teeth backwards in the fashion of a circular saw. Now, thankfully for us, this species of shark existed over 290 million years ago, so there'll be no risk of us running into such a terrifying monstrosity anytime soon. But the fact that evolution caused this creature's jaw to try and become a literal maw of razor sharp teeth like some horrifying Lovecraftian beast is nightmare fuel enough. Perhaps its closest relative is the goblin shark or the tiny spookfish and ghost sharks that have considerably shrunk down in size since their heyday. Presumably, we can only guess as to its feeding habits, but with the way its teeth were assembled, that's a pretty tall order for our imaginations. Oh, and also, did I mention that they were about 40 feet in length? Not today, Helicoprion. No thank you. Swinging in at number 4, the Dunkleosteus. Alright, unfortunately we're going to have to stay in the ocean for a little while longer, because if we're talking subaquatic horror movies, then I think I may have the perfect candidate, and certainly one that hasn't been covered in horror cinema before. Yet anyway. Forget about Piranha 3D, forget about Deep Blue Sea, let me introduce you to the Dunkleosteus. Alright, okay, maybe on the surface they don't look that terrifying, especially compared to the Helicoprion, but just hold that thought for a moment. Fish assemble in shoals, right? Swimming about in great big swarms under the sea, bright and colourful and most of them pretty unassuming, who generally make up the prey rather than the predator. Well, about 380 million years ago, things would have been a little bit different, especially if this guy was about. A giant armoured fish whose jaws possessed enough pressure to exert over 755 kilograms of pressure. Now imagine a whole swarm of them coming toward you. Also, it's important to note that there are over 10 different species of the Dunkleosteus, suggesting that they were in fact both numerous and diverse creatures, vastly populating the oceans of the ancient world. The largest of the species is the Dunkleosteus torelli, a fish that had a rounded snout and 2 razor-sharp plates that made up its beak of a jaw. Like other placoderms of the time, it had a 2-part, highly armoured exterior made from bone, and the reason that it possessed such a powerful beak, and another source for the nightmare fuel, is that it's also theorized these creatures cannibalized each other. And also, again, did I mention that the largest of these things grew up to 20 feet in length? It's a freaking fish. Really, the Dunkleosteus makes the piranha of today look like a goldfish. These things are the most metal thing that you could ever have possibly battered and fried and served alongside chips with mushy peas. Cannibals, scourge of the sea, razor sharp beaks. No thank you. No thank you, no wonder we left the ocean. Next up at number 3, the Megalania. Alright, now, some of you may have looked at this list and thought, dragons. I bet there's going to be some dragons on this list. But yeah, come on guys, we know that dragons aren't real. And I'm starting to string you along like that. I really am. Komodo dragons though, those things are very, very real. Just imagine a horror movie with a whole pit full of Komodo dragons slobbering around with vile poisonous spit frothing from their mouths, and whilst I'm still pretty damn shocked that Komodo dragons haven't featured in their own blockbuster modern horror film yet, although they've certainly been covered in B movies, forget about that for now. Sideline the Komodo dragon, because their ancient ancestor is far, far more terrifying. Let me introduce you to the Megalania, the largest terrestrial lizard ever known to have existed, and one of the few ancient creatures on this list that would have been skittering across the earth alongside our ancient human ancestors. Yeah, you heard that right. This guy would have been a contender on the apex predatory pyramid, and given the fact that the Greek translation of this creature's name is Ancient Giant Butcher, yeah, competition. Now, given the fact that there is a lack of a complete skeleton of the Megalania, it's hard to establish its exact size, but the most conservative of estimations put this giant lizard at around 23 feet in length with a maximum weight of 620 kilos. Judging from its size alone, it would have fed upon mid to large animals, mostly giant marsupials such as the Diprotodon, as well as large birds and their chicks. Native to Australia, some scientists regard the Megalania as the only predator of the Australian Pleistocene megafauna, meaning that this thing would have dominated the landscape as the apex predator of the time, rivaled only by the quincana, a genus of extinct terrestrial crocodile. Oh yeah, and also as a varanid lizard, this thing was dripping with a highly venomous hemotoxin, and given the fact it is the largest venomous vertebrate ever known, and even more terrifying, the indigenous people of Australia would have been around at the time of the Megalania. Yeah, humans were kept awake at night by the thought of this terrifying lizard out in the bush. No thank you. Coming in at number 2, the hell pig. Alright, now whilst it may seem that by name alone this thing is terrifying enough, I've thought long and hard about what would possibly be the best premise for a horror movie ancient creature throughout the confines of this list. Certainly, the hell pig would strike fear just by its title, but bear with me because the implication behind this giant pig of the wild is going to take a little bit of our imagination for it to truly ignite the nightmare fuel. The Archaeotherium, which means ancient beast, isn't really a pig. In fact, whilst it certainly would visually resemble what are now wild warthogs, the hell pig is actually far closer to being a hippo or even a whale than it is the common swine. It is derived from a disputed genus, the Artiodactyls, which are an ancestral group that now makes up deer, sheep, camels and llamas, and whilst those guys certainly aren't ready to shovel the fear in our faces despite their best efforts, the hell pig was certainly willing and able. For one reason alone. Have you ever seen a hippo open its jaws? Do you know what damage can be wrought by a hippo opening and closing its mouth on a creature's head? Hippos are insane, and these guys, the hell pigs, were the halcyon purveyors of that same ancient terror, a frightening hybrid of warthog meets hippopotamus that roamed the insane wilderness in packs of hell pigs, hunting down prehistoric rhinos. Seriously guys, these hell pigs preyed on the ancestors of rhinos just for the hell of it. Also, because of the structural limitations of their bizarre hybrid maw, the hell pig would have had to have bisected its prey into chunks of flesh before gnawing on it and crunching it down into a mush like some strange giant hell pig truffle hunter. Hell pigs were crazy guys, and if you were scared of razorback, then just imagine a herd of these things coming for you. They wouldn't even give you the mercy of a quick death. It'd just be slow and full of hippo teeth. And finally, coming in at number 1 spot, Haasts Eagle. Because yes, when it comes to a creature of such power and terror that would have certainly feasted upon humans given the chance, in that regard, Haasts Eagle is one of the undisputed champions of the ancient world. Also, it just so happens to be the largest eagle ever known to have existed. The largest eagle ever. Do you know how efficient eagles are as predators? Yeah. Frighteningly so. They're the lord of the skies for a reason. Now picture them with a wingspan of nearly 10 feet. And you'll be ready to feel the same fear that the poor flightless moa bird felt before they were hunted to extinction. Have you ever heard of island gigantism? It's a biological phenomenon that occurs when the size of a predator suddenly blows up after being left isolated on an island to hunt all of the poor helpless prey that it so desires. Such is the case with Haasts Eagle, specifically in the South Island of New Zealand, presumably around the year 1200 or so AD. You see, the point where this entry earns its feathers is that for an unknown amount of time, Haasts Eagle feasted on the flightless moa bird of New Zealand to their heart's content. Eventually though, when the early Maori settlers arrived on the island around the year 1280, eventually in about 1400 AD, Haasts Eagle had hunted all of the moa to extinction. At this specific point in time, when the Haasts Eagle were tragically slipping away from this planet and becoming extinct in their own right, they would literally eat children. These giant, swooping, legendary feathered and beaked predators would soar from the skies of New Zealand, attack and eat Maori children, even in some cases grown humans. Now, although these occurrences are only passed down through Maori legend, Haasts Eagle plays an integral role in their oral traditions. They refer to it as Puakai, the monster bird, a literal ancestor of the true raptor. The Haasts Eagle was so damn terrifying that it earned its own place in the mythos of Maori culture. Yeah, it's sad to see such a beautiful creature no longer with us, but holy moly, these birds would have torn us to shreds.
Coming in at number 5, Mega Piranha. I am a piranha. They are from the Amazon. Yes, it's possible that I watched Finding Nemo a few too many times as a kid, and somehow I think Darla still might be scarier than the bony terror fish I'm about to introduce. Something about that headgear still sends shivers down my spine. Back to the Mega Piranha though. This ancient carnivorous fish is basically a piranha, but mega. They are estimated to have been about a meter long and weighed over 73 kilograms. Although some say that they could have been as heavy as 484 kilos. crazy. Gigantic aquatic creatures are creepy enough, but that is not the scariest part by a mile. A regular piranha one might find today has a jaw that can generate around 72 pounds of force, which is pretty insane for a little fish, right? Well, the mega piranha might have been able to chomp down with over 1,068 pounds of force. If anything ever generates 1,068 pounds of force anywhere in my body, I want to be put down. Just end me. Pound for pound, this bite force is greater than that of megalodons, alligators, and even the mighty T-Rex. And it's not like the mega piranha is just gonna gum you. No, it has teeth. Serrated chompers with stout circular roots arranged in a zigzag pattern across its front jaw that are sharp enough to slice flesh and sturdy enough to crush turtle shells and bones. Yes, this fish will crush your bones. Be thankful you can hop in the water today without worrying about these meat manglers. Coming in at number 4, we've got Quetzalcoatlus. Pterodactyls are pretty crazy, right? Giant lizard birds with insane beaks and all. Well, the Quetzalcoatlus puts those winged freaks to shame. With a stork neck, back wings, and 4 limbs, this is the largest creature to ever fly. If it was standing on the ground, this boy would be as tall as a giraffe. And with its wings outstretched, it's been estimated at having a span of 35 feet. It's basically the size of a Cessna aircraft. I'd be really down to pilot a giant winged thing. Although, if I was flying one of these guys, I'd probably, fall to my death from 10,000 feet. But hey. There are a few hypotheses on how these flyers fed, and some say they skimmed the water for fish, while others claim they scavenged and fed on small terrestrial animals. I like the idea of a gigantic lizard bird snatching up a baby dino and flying away with it. If they were alive today, you can bet they'd be snacking on family dogs and cats left out in backyards. Maybe even the kids playing on the little play structure. Not the nicest thing to think about, but these humongous beings were superbly adapted to long-range extended flight and could fly at speeds of up to 130 kilometers per hour for 7 to 10 days at altitudes of 4,600 meters. They could do cross-continental trips like it was nothing. This was made possible thanks to thermal gliding, where it would use rising columns of warm air and glide along for ages. I can only imagine the chaos that would ensue if they were gliding around today, crashing into small aircraft, getting sucked into turbines, and taking down planes. Oh boy. Filling out our number 3 spot, we've got Arthropleura. What is 8 feet long, has enough legs to make you squirm, and crawls along the floor, terrifying anyone who discovers it? Nope, not the human centipede. Arthropleura. This is the largest known land invertebrate of all time. This gigantic creepy crawly lived during the Carboniferous era and grew to be so large, probably due to the greater partial pressure of oxygen in the atmosphere. That and the fact that there were no predators around to eat it. Although, even if there were predators, could you imagine trying to eat an 8-foot millipede? It'd be like crunchy and leggy and gooey. No. These monstrous bugs had hundreds of legs that undulated in rhythm, allowing it to maneuver quickly along the forest floor, swerving around obstacles. They were likely herbivores, feasting on decomposing plant matter on the ground, which admittedly is less terrifying than a carnivorous millipede, but I can just imagine seeing one of these things scuttling around, looking like a giant moving rug with a hard shell. These leggy fellows went extinct at the end of the Carboniferous period as the climate dried out and rainforests grew smaller. They live on today as much smaller, much less horrible regular millipedes. Stomping in at number 2, we've got the Spinosaurus. Honestly, I would not mind if this one was around today. It's so freaking cool. I deal with all the death and destruction. This 60-foot carnivorous lizard is actually the largest of all known carnivorous dinosaurs, bigger than even the T-Rex and Gigantosaurus. Yes, bigger than the Gigantosaurus. They got the names wrong, folks. Although, for this one in particular, they got the name right. This spine lizard, or Spinosaurus, had 7-foot spines growing out of its back, creating a sail-like shape, or possibly a hump. They're not really sure. It'd be like having a bunch of basketball players sprout from your back. It is thought that these were used to make itself either look bigger, or used for heat regulation, or to attract mates, or all the above. The Spinosaurus was semi-aquatic, meaning that nobody's safe on land or water. No escape. However, it probably spent a lot of time in the water and ate lots of fish. It had short hind limbs like early whales, dense compact bones like penguins, wide flat feet for paddling, and an alligator-like snout for catching fish. An apex predator in the water for sure. But don't feel like you'd be safer on land, because this sucker could have hit speeds up to 25 kilometers per hour. So unless you're whipping the Corolla, this guy's catching up to you. Originally discovered in western Egypt, the Spinosaurus likely lived around 100 million years ago and might have actually been the first dinosaur to take to the water. So if you need any more reasons as to why it would absolutely suck to deal with one today, go ahead and watch Jurassic Park 3. This lad takes over as the main antagonist and scraps with the T-Rex. Although, you know what? It might be cool to host a dinosaur fight club. Let's place some bets, folks. And finally, number 1, Titanoboa. That clip was from the Wet and Wild creature feature from 1997, Anaconda. Yes, we are talking about Titanoboa, but we'll make that link between the two snakes soon enough. If I could imagine one way I would never want to go, it would probably be getting suffocated and crushed to death. And guess how this 42-foot snake kills? Oh no. The Titanoboa, or Titanic boa, is considered the largest snake going, or at least it was during the Paleocene epoch. No living snake has ever been verified with a length of over 31.5 feet, and it is highly doubtful that we'll ever see this record broken. They were able to grow so large because way back when, in the South American rainforests, there were much higher temperatures, and this meant that cold-blooded killer reptiles could grow to be way bigger. A stealthy killer, the Titanoboa probably hunted similar to crocodiles, lurking right beneath the surface of shallow water. When a poor, unsuspecting animal came to the edge to drink, it would strike. The Titanoboa would then wrap itself around the prey and crush it to death. It would then swallow the prey whole, down the hatch. This thing could down crocodiles like 2-bite brownies, given that mega slurp action. Although it has a similar appearance to a boa constrictor, its hunting methods more closely resemble an anaconda. I considered making a Nicki Minaj joke here, but I thought better of it. You're welcome.
In the number 5 spot, we have the woolly mammoth. I know what you're all thinking, these things are huge, why would we want them to come back to life? Well, it turns out, humans and mammoths coexisted quite well since the Ice Age times, and our species probably wouldn't be around today if it weren't for the mammoth and all that stuff you could do with one if you hunted it. So, just in case we go through another Ice Age, which for us Canadians honestly is basically every winter, it would be kind of nice to have these guys around again. Up next in the number 4 spot, we have the passenger pigeon. But Roya, just go outside, we have tons of pigeons. Yes, but the passenger pigeon held a special significance for many Native American tribes. The Huron people believed that passenger pigeons were the reincarnation of the departed, so bringing them back would sort of be a symbolic way of bringing the deceased back to life as well. Comforting or creepy? You decide. Moving on to the number 3 spot, we have the saber-toothed tiger. Not because Diego is my favorite character from Ice Age, but because predatory animals are extremely important to maintaining populations at a controlled level to sustain the environment. And the saber-toothed tiger was an excellent wide-ranged predator. Well, actually, not excellent enough, clearly. Next up at the number 2 spot is the dodo. These birds are famous for being so stupid, they basically drove themselves into extinction. Now if only some people I knew could do that as well. So while bringing them back may not last very long, it is possible that we could crossbreed them to create a dodo that is slightly more self-aware and won't just run into the jaws of its predators. And why should we do this? Simply put, this thing is hilarious to look at, and it's nice to know that nature has a sense of humor. Finally, in the number 1 spot, we have Neanderthals. Otherwise known as cavemen, the Neanderthals technically weren't humans like us, but they were a subspecies of ancient human. So can you imagine the field day biologists, psychologists, sociologists, any kind of ologist would have if we could bring back these close relatives? They would provide such a rich insight into how we developed and how we can keep going as a race. But there's one question. Is this a smart idea?
Your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.